Healthcare is too expensive. Employers are offsetting costs onto their employees. Who will make health benefits affordable for hard-working Americans and their families?
You will! This is the Empowering Plans Podcast, a show dedicated to helping you once again emphasize the benefits in your benefit plan. Now prepare to learn,
Plan,
save,
and protect with the FIA Group.
Welcome to this episode of Empowering Plans with the FIA Group. My name is Cindy Merrell, and today I am joined by Bryan Dunton. Say hi, Bryan.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're going to start talking about, what we're seeing every day in the news is more things about the big giants. And one of those giants that we see pretty regularly right now in the news is United Healthcare Group. But not only are we seeing them, what are the impacts and takeaways that we can learn from all of this newsworthy information that we're seeing every day? So to start, I was shocked just last week as I was sitting at my desk and I got a news alert about some statements that the CEO, who's just recently been reinstated at United Healthcare Group, he made some comments that were pretty newsworthy, and I was taken aback by them. So, Bryan, did you happen to see that?
Yeah, I saw it. He had a sweeping statement about having a stem to stern overhaul that was going to span leadership and business operations and the internal culture and even board governance. So it's pretty wild to see something like that come out of a Q2 earnings report.
Yeah, that's I would say a pretty rare unicorn when somebody says, look, I know that there's problems. I acknowledge them, but we're gonna do a whole overhaul. And that to me is taking some responsibility and recognition of some things that definitely seem to need to change. So what are some of those things that they were talking about? What was he talking about specifically?
So he's talking about changing the leadership structure, a renewed focus on business fundamentals, operating discipline. The big focal points seem to be a cultural reset to try and rebuild trust with regulators, providers, payers, probably even plan participants, honestly. And also some kind of long-term plan for governance and appropriate succession as well. So there's a lot of implications here for self-funded health plans as well.
Yeah, I mean, every day it felt like there was a new, like they're getting beat over the head with something new. A lot of what we've seen is they've had a lot of issues with some of their adverse claims determinations, and just generally there seems to have been quite a bit of things happening over there. But the good news is, we can learn from those. And what are some of the things that you think in your everyday, because you do this every day, that you think this could affect some of our self-funded health plans? How is that going to help us?
So I think for self-funded health plans, you have to look at the utilization management process. I think you're going to see tighter standards come out of United Health Group for this. So, medical necessity determinations, prior authorization, concurrent review, retrospective review, all of those kinds of claims determinations, they're going to take a closer, tighter look at what their operational practice is behind it. I think you might see a shift in contracting dynamics. So there may be more rigid administrative service agreements and oversight protocols in place. So plans need to be aware of that. But a lot of this is going to come down to plans, effectively communicating for those that do work with United, with their contacts over there at the vendor to make sure they know what the day-to-day operational changes will be as all of this meets itself out.
Yeah, and one of the things that I am seeing is that it was for so long, it felt like there was just, they kept coming out and they would have to keep defending. But now I think we're actually seeing a recognition that there's actual changes that are happening that, like you said, are going to affect, we're going to see those in practice likely from UHG, but then we'll, we can take some notes from that as well. So one of the cases that we were talking about how UHG seems to be in the news a lot here recently. One of the cases that's been in the news is the Soli versus T-Mobile and claims communication risks. Can you tell me a little bit about that case?
Yeah, so Soli v. T-Mobile involves T-Mobile's ERISA health plan, and United Healthcare is the claims administrator for it. In this case, there was a plan participant that was denied coverage for a hernia surgery and received only a vague denial explanation in their explanation of benefits, their EOB. The plan essentially failed to follow DOL claims procedure rules here, and when it got to the Ninth Circuit, they agreed with the plan participant and said that the denial notice was insufficient. They vacated and remanded the case back down to the district court and emphasized pretty strongly, actually, that plans need to deliver very specific reasoning, include specific plan language in those denials, and they can't rely on vague boilerplate language, and they don't want to see any kind of post hoc or after the fact justification for it.
As a subrogation attorney, I see these things every day, these EOBs that come out from plans, and I myself every day have to go, what does that actually mean? And I see them across the board, and if I don't know, and I'm in this industry every day for practicing in law for over 10 years, and I don't understand what it's even actually saying, I can understand how somebody who isn't in this world every day may not understand that actual denial or adverse claims determination. And so I'm actually kind of, I get it. I understand that there is a need for more clear reasoning and determination. So I agree with the court on that's definitely a need. And because it was a very boilerplate language that was used in the communication that was given to the plan member in that case. So I think this is very timely and in the mix of everything that's going on. So
yeah, I agree. The court had said things like service may not be covered are not going to be considered sufficient at all. So not having appropriate plan language, it increases the risk, the liabilities for litigation if those procedures fall short. That's something plans have to worry about. And ensuring they have clear, compliant denial language is going to be huge. Maybe from a plan perspective, audit your documents now to make sure those templates are appropriate, maybe even do sample testing to see if this denial communication is sufficient, and definitely make sure that your claims teams are trained appropriately too.
I agree. So and that's some really good advice that our clients can walk away with and that's a pretty straightforward recommendation, right? Just making sure that it's more clear. I don't feel like this is very convoluted. I think what's convoluted is leaving things to be, when things say words like may, well, what's may not? What is may? How do I get this done if they may cover this or it may not be covered? Well, how do I know? This is definitely, I appreciate the clarity and the court's comments on that.
Yeah, in cases like this, like if you're not clear enough, it can not only lead to remand in a lawsuit like it did here, but you also run the risk of losing that deferential review standard before the court too. So big implications if you're not careful with this.
And then we're talking about, so it's not just that, it's the prior authorization reforms that were also going to be affected by what the court was talking about in there here. And so tell me a little bit more about prior authorizations and what implications we might be able to see from everything that's coming down from all these cases.
So we've seen a tremendous amount of industry pressure and political pressure for that matter in this area just over the last year, particularly in the last quarter and a half, I'd say. United Health Group and Optum RX, they've eased prior authorization burdens as a result. They've eliminated 25% of reauthorization for pharmacy benefits back in March. In May, just a few months later, they waived authorization for upwards of 80 prescription drugs, including some that are high need. And earlier this year, they even relaxed prior authorization requirements for outpatient therapy for Medicare Advantage plans. But they're not the only ones that are involved in making some kind of change to how they handle prior authorization, right?
Right. So that it looks like the some of the larger ones, Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Humana, they've also voluntarily committed to being more open with the having a smoother experience for both providers and members for the prior authorizations. And I think what as a consumer, we are all consumers of healthcare, and it will make it hopefully a little bit smoother, not only for them, but also for some of these big guys. It's a little bit less administration. It's just clearer, more straightforward.
Definitely.
And I think it's going to be a big change. I think we're going to see, I hope, and hopefully we'll see a huge change in these. I know that there's some providers who, if they really needed to make this, this emergent, if it was an emergent need that they had, but the health plan is saying that it's non-emergent, and then they're having all these prior authorization issues. I can see how frustrating it can be for the consumer.
Yeah, it
So
definitely
what does
can
all
be.
this mean, though, for self-funded health plans?
So for plans, I mean, I guess it really matters how much of this is actually going to come to fruition. It's a voluntary pledge that they made to the HHS Secretary Kennedy and the administrator of CMS, Dr. Oz. So we'll see how many of these actually come to light, but they could have a meaningful impact. Standardized electronic prior authorization would help. Reducing the number of services for prior authorization, which has a target date of January 1st of next year. So any kind of meaningful change there, you're going to see in the very near future. Some of the other ones that are really important, transparency on prior authorization decisions. That's going to be huge in trying to determine whether something needs to be appealed or not. From a provider and plan participant perspective, those are all big. I think the biggest one, though, honestly, is ensuring medical professional reviews are there for any kind of denial. Like having a human in the loop like that's going to be huge. We've seen in the news over the last couple of years that there's some TPAs out there, some vendors in the industry that just use a completely automated process for some of their prior authorization stuff, and it's led to issues with improper denial. So ensuring someone that's there that is a medical professional that's trained can really cut down on those issues. But for plans, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Reducing that administrative friction, it's going to make providers happy, it's going to make plan participants happy, but there's less control over utilization, so it could increase the costs for claims to the plan. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that balancing act happens, right? To make sure that we reach that perfect balance. Well, so what are just generally speaking, what should plans walk away with from all of this that's happening? What does it actually mean for all of us going forward?
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the comments in some of the research we did for this was that overall, everything feels kind of disconnected, inconsistent, and inequitable with the outcomes in healthcare as a whole, and that affects participants and providers. So this is kind of a wake-up call, really, for plans and their fiduciaries, right?
Definitely, I agree. I think that this is going to be, there might be more, and this is your world, but the tighter plan terms and higher contribution to demands, and we might just see some more flexibility instead of some of the rigid. When you were talking about the automated denials and automated pre-authorizations, that I think that those are going to be a good. I think they're overall going to be a very good thing for all of us. However, I do see that it is going to cost a little bit more to have some of this administration on plan side. So I definitely I'm excited that this is happening in a good way, that there's some, we want to move. Everyone talks about healthcare reform. What does that mean? But this, I think, is actually some tangible steps that should, in theory, effectuate positive changes.
I think so. I think so too. And even with the prior authorization pledge, the regulators have said that they're kind of going to let this try and happen naturally. And if it doesn't, then they'll step in and try and force the issue a little bit. They might enter rulemaking. They might investigate some of these big players in the industry for their operational practices. So it's not just in their hands for now. Maybe it is, but there's still being pressure applied to make sure that change actually happens in a meaningful way.
And there's also from two attorneys, a plan might want to definitely engage some local counsel to assess exposure and any kind of preempt any litigation. When you're reviewing these things, it's always easier to do it ahead of time than it is at the end. So that would definitely be a good recommendation for some plans.
Yep. And also certainly keep track of whatever these shifting prior authorization policies are, map what those changes are with your vendor to your plan, and make sure you're doing an appropriate claims audit to identify any gaps that you have too.
Well, everyone, I think we've had a fantastic discussion about where we've been, where we hope to go, and how that we hope to see some positive changes. So I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, Bryan, for your time. And
Thank you, Cindy.
I will see you the next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.